Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. Join award-winning host Dale Davidson as he interviews the most remarkable people you'll find in the entertainment capital of the world. You'll meet entertainers, sports figures, newsmakers, community and business leaders, and people just like you with stories that'll touch your heart. Now, here's Dale Davidson.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. Each and every week at this time, we bring you a very special guest. And boy, have we done it this time. Dr. Mike Rodrigues is here to talk about ministry, about singing, about, oh, well, you'll see, even politics. Doctor, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure.
We appreciate it. And I'll call you Mike, because you told me I could.
Indeed.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Oakland, California.
Okay.
And when I was about 4 or 5 years old, my family moved to Hayward, California, which is just east of San Francisco.
I know where it is, yeah.
Okay. My father was a grower, a wholesale grower.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up with a shovel in my hands and dirt under my fingernails. My parents were from the Hawaiian Islands.
Oh, okay.
The story there is that my great-grandparents left Spain more than 100 and something years ago, and they immigrated to the Hawaiian Islands. And so my parents were both born in the Hawaiian Islands, but they met, interestingly enough, in California.
Is that right?
Indeed.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So they decided to go back to the islands and get married. 3 of my sisters were born there. Then before I was born, they decided to move back to California. So I missed out on the islands. But I grew up working in my father's nursery. Mm-hmm. As I said, my father was a wholesale grower. And he supplied, you remember Franklin Woolworth's company?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
They had a garden shop in the Bay Area, and my father was one of their suppliers.
Wow. Because
of the talent to grow. You know, it's one thing to be the retailer, it's another thing to actually grow the plants, and so he was very talented at that. And so we worked, every day after school and on the weekends. So I was disciplined with respect to hard work and doing the school work, although I didn't necessarily enjoy going to school, other than it helped me to get out of doing all that work. Especially in the summertime. I looked forward to the summers ending so that I could get back into school. But I always had a love for singing. My parents both sang, and my father taught me to play the guitar when I was a little boy. And we would have a fun time after dinner. We would always sing and dance, and so we had a fun time. And music was very much part of my upbringing. Then, around the 60s, of course, Vietnam was hard and heavy there.
Sure, I remember.
I graduated in the 70s and went into the United States Air Force. And was supposed to go to Vietnam, but right there toward the tail end of Vietnam, they decided to send me to the Middle East. So I served a tour of duty in Turkey.
Wow.
And then over in North Dakota on the way back, and then I ended up here in Las Vegas. My last tour of duty was at Nellis Air Force Base.
So that's how you ended up in Las Vegas.
That's how I ended up in Las Vegas.
And when you mustered out, did you decide at that point that I need to further my education?
I sure did. My father... my father passed away while I was overseas, but one of the last things that he encouraged me to do was to go to school. Now, we would always talk about what I was going to be when I grew up and those kinds of things. He wanted me to be a landscape engineer, and I wanted to sing. And he said, now, Michael, you have a nice voice and you're talented, but you'll never make any money singing.
That sounds just like a parent, doesn't it?
But if you have this, you see, this business, then you'll have a living, and you won't want or lack money. But singing, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. And then that life is not the best life. This life is an honest life, a life of hard work. But I wanted to be a singer. So after I came here to Las Vegas, I enrolled at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas into the musical program.
Oh, good.
And I earned my bachelorette in operatic performance.
Okay.
And during that period of time, however, I started attending First Southern Baptist Church on St. Louis.
Sure.
And felt the call to go into full-time Christian service. And so I was caught between this dream of becoming an operatic singer or this calling to serve in full-time Christian service. And I decided to pursue my theological education. The people in the church, you know, they were all convinced that I should go into the music ministry because of the singing.
Because of your background,
Right.
sure, yeah.
But I wasn't necessarily convinced that that was the only thing that the Lord wanted me to do. I also felt the call to teach and to preach. So I went to seminary in the San Francisco Bay Area. Mill
Golden
Valley.
Gate Theological Seminary, I read.
And earned my divinity degree there. And I felt and still feel that the Lord wants me to both preach and teach as well as sing. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 30 plus years.
That's wonderful. Now, interspersed with that was a distinguished career in education.
That's correct.
So what made you decide you wanted to work for the school district?
Well, that's a great question. I was pastoring a church, a local church here in town, and we were going through some difficulties, as many churches do. I moved to a smaller congregation, as a matter of fact, to Homesite Baptist Church, the church that I'm pastoring now. At that particular time, we had just a handful of members. Mm-hmm. They weren't able to pay me a livable salary, and my kids had developed the habit of wanting to eat.
It's funny how that works.
So I had to work, and a friend of mine said, you could probably apply over at the school district and work there at the school district. And so I applied to become a substitute teacher.
Oh, okay. That's how it all began.
And they assigned me to so many days. I thought, well, you know what? I might consider doing this on a full-time basis.
And get the benefits.
Indeed.
And the next thing you know, he's a principal. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We need to take a brief break. We'll be back again with Dr. Mike Rodrigues right after this.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
Jesus is the cornerstone, came for sinners to atone. Though rejected by his own, he became the cornerstone. Jesus is the cornerstone. When I am my sin oppressed, upon the stone I am at rest. When the seeds of truth are sown, he remains the cornerstone. is the cornerstone.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. We're pleased to have with us Dr. Mike Rodrigues, who is a pastor. He's a former school administrator. He's a terrific singer, and you're going to have an opportunity in and out of our breaks to hear a little bit and see a little bit of Dr. Rodrigues' talent on stage. You were talking about education. How did you end up being a principal? And I got a couple of questions about what it's really like to be a principal. But tell me how that happened.
Well, I began teaching for the school district as a sub, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so the district has such a great need with respect to the number of subs.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was working every day, and I got to thinking, if I'm going to work every day, I might as well have a full-time salary and the benefits that come with that. And I enjoyed what I was doing.
You liked teaching?
I liked teaching.
Yeah.
I liked interacting with the students and investing in their lives. So I applied to be a music teacher. And because I had training as an operatic performer, so I had a music degree, and then I had a theological degree. The district allowed me to then become a music teacher. But I had to also go through a certification process.
Okay.
So I had to take the various classes, again, going back to school to take the certification classes and also student teach. And I fulfilled all those requirements.
You did it here in
I did it
Las
right
Vegas?
here in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And the district then hired me to be a music teacher, which I just absolutely loved. And I was the music teacher over at Mountain View Elementary School on the east side. And I was there for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And this was a year-round school. So 12 months out of the year we're in school. And so it was quite enjoyable teaching the kids to play all the instruments, the various instruments that we taught the kids to use and to play are instruments that I learned to play when I was a child growing up, because I was also a drummer.
Oh, okay.
I loved to play the drums as well as the guitar and
Me
sing.
too. I was a drummer.
Very good.
And a trombonist. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So as time went on, I began considering whether or not I should remain bivocational. There are those in the ministry who are bivocational. The Apostle Paul was a bivocational minister.
Tent maker.
He was a tent maker.
Right.
And so I used the gift that the Lord gave me, the gift of music, and the ability to teach that the Lord gave, to provide for my family while also working with our church. And through a couple of discussions with my current principal at the time, we talked about the possibility of me becoming an administrator.
Really?
So, right, they gave me...
They saw some talent there.
And then there was also a desire.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I pastor a church. I think I could manage a school. So I began to take the educational administrative classes at UNLV.
Okay.
While taking on more responsibility at the school, and
still with the classes.
But still with
the
classes.
Yeah.
And I found that to be a very positive experience. So eventually, and the district does put you through a tremendous amount of training.
Do they?
They do.
Yeah.
They require a tremendous amount of training. But I went through that successfully, and eventually became an assistant principal. Now, when you become an assistant principal, you're not necessarily assigned to a specific school, but then again you are. But you're always at the beck and call of the district, so they can move you at any time. They may say, well,
the slot opens up, or
right.
we have a problem here,
We'll
we need you to
there.
troubleshoot, or whatever.
So I was an assistant principal at various schools, Decker Elementary, Crestwood Elementary School, Manch Elementary School. And then every now and then they would place me at a school as an acting principal. For some reason, maybe that principal was ill and it wasn't large enough to have its own assistant principal.
Oh, okay.
So they needed an administrator there. So another means of grooming or preparing someone to become a principal, they'll place you at a school where they feel that you'll be effective. So I had that opportunity, and after about 3.5 years, I had the good fortune to be promoted to principal in the school district.
Now tell me what that was like. How is it different than being a teacher? I know it's significantly different, but in what ways are the skill set, different?
When you are a teacher, you are concerned basically with what goes on in that classroom. Now, I was a music teacher, so I taught all of the kids in the school.
Yeah.
Where most teachers have a self-contained classroom, they're responsible, depending upon what grade level. It might be anywhere from 20 to 30 plus kids. But as a specialist, you're teaching, and at that particular school at Mountain View, we had close to 1,000 kids. So you're
That's
teaching.
a big school.
You're
for an
teaching.
elementary,
You're teaching all of these kids.
Yeah.
But the principal of the school is responsible not only for every child at the school, but every employee, for the facility itself, and for interacting with every parent or family member of a particular student who wants to be engaged in that child's education.
Which all should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As well as the community at large and your supervisors in the district at large. So there is a huge change with respect to the scope of your responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk about an educational administrator versus a teacher.
And you did that to yourself on purpose.
Indeed, I sure did.
We're going to be back and talk some more about that because we have challenges here in the school district and opportunities, and I want to get your opinion on those.
Okay,
if we can.
very good.
We'll be back with Dr. Mike Rodrigues right after these messages. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you. Welcome back to Las Vegas tonight. We're talking with Dr. Mike Rodrigues, a multifaceted man and a great Christian teacher, preacher, minister, and a pretty darn good singer too, as you've noticed with the little pieces we've played during the breaks. We appreciate your bringing that along and allowing us to show it on the show.
Thank you.
My mom was a public school music teacher. And so I have a real appreciation for what you've done. I have to admit, for years, she did everything from pushing the cart, from classroom to classroom, or having her own classroom, and she was truly dedicated to those kids, and I think she probably got the biggest kick out of seeing the kids grown up. you know, years later and coming up and saying,
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Davidson, remember me? And I did some. Did you have those kinds of experiences as an educator?
I have had those.
Yeah.
One day, now I don't recall the young lady's name, but I was preparing for an opera over at UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to step out of a practice room where I had been working with a pianist, and a young lady said, Mr. R, because that's what they would call me when I was teaching music. And I turned and I said, yes. She said, you were my music teacher. And I said, oh, really? She said, yes, I'm studying music here now at UNLV.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was...
that gives you a good feeling,
indeed
doesn't
it does.
Knowing
Indeed it does.
knowing that you had a long-lasting impact. Let's talk about education and talk about specifically the public school system here in Las Vegas. Many challenges. It's a diverse population. There's an awful lot of moving in and out. There's a lot of transition here. What do you think the future is in education here in Las Vegas, public school education? There's some who say the district is too large, it ought to be broken into pieces and so on. What's your feeling on the challenges that face Las Vegas public school?
That's actually a very difficult question to answer, but I'll do my best, at least from my own perspective.
Sure.
The Clark County School District, most people who move here are unaware of the fact that the school district here, at least for the last 20 to 30 years, has grown each year by the size of the average school district in America.
Wow.
Because the average school district in America is about 15 to 30,000 students.
Okay.
And the Clark County School District is well over 300,000 students.
Wow.
But it has grown to that over the course of the last 20 to 30 years at about the rate of 15 to 25,000 students per year.
That's amazing.
It's just incredible.
And they've had to build like a school a year, right?
Well, they built more than that.
Have they?
Over the course of the last several the 3 decades, the district built on average 8 to 12 new schools every single year.
Oh my gosh.
And most people,
School a month.
they're unaware of what this Clark County School District has really accomplished over the last quarter century. Just tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous growth, and yet they have to not only build the actual facility, then they have to furnish that facility, and they have to staff that facility in such a way that they're able to meet the needs of the individual students who live within the community or maybe beyond the 2-mile radius and bus those kids in.
Right.
So I have nothing but applause for the Clark
Sure,
County School District.
sure.
It has done a tremendous job, and it has not received, at least from my perspective, it has not received the recognition that it really deserves.
For all they've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it says an awful lot.
Absolutely.
I had heard that there were some full-time recruiters going all over the country to find teachers there.
They
for
go
a
all
while.
over the world.
Is that right?
Oh, indeed.
Wow.
Not only in the United States, but they go to other countries of the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Let's talk about politics for a second.
Okay.
What possessed you to run for Congress, and are you going to do it again? Let's start right off with that.
Well, while I was serving as a principal, I had an opportunity to go to a principals convention in Virginia, and I have a brother-in-law and sister-in-law who live in Manassas, Virginia.
Oh yeah, sure.
And one of my desires was always to go and visit Washington, D.C. And it was just something that was there in my heart. I wanted to go to Washington, D.C. And I appreciate leadership. I was in the military, and so I've read some of the various writings on Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and they're fascinating figures, and I love their leadership and the character of their lives and the impact that they've made on the United States and on the world. So while I was at this principals training conference, I thought, you know, if I work things out just right, instead of flying back from Virginia there, I can go ahead and fly out of the Reagan airport. Right
Oh,
there,
yeah, sure.
Out of
sure.
Washington.
Right on the Potomac.
Indeed. So
Yeah,
I went up
yeah.
and I spent a day with my brother and sister-in-law, and I went on into Washington, D.C. And I said, you know, I'm gonna go visit Washington, D.C. They said, well, you can't walk the whole thing in a day. I said, well, I'm gonna do my best, okay? So,
You can't walk the whole mall in
yeah,
one day,
yeah,
I don't think.
So I did my best, and of course, you know, it's an impossibility, but I visited quite a bit, and I was really moved by what I saw, and I thought, I want to bring my family here. I want my family to see all of this, because I went through the various Smithsonian museums.
That's really something.
And the Capitol,
isn't it?
even
Wow.
went to the White House, and I was really bummed out that day because I put off going to the White House. I went to the Capitol first.
Right.
And I came around through this park, and there in the park there was a kiosk, and on this kiosk there was an invitation for the entire public to eat lunch at the White House. And
Really?
the lunch was going from like from 10 to 2.
Right.
And so it was open
Just
to the public, because this was
walk in.
prior 9/11.
Oh, sure.
But when I read that sign, it was already 2:30. So I was kicking myself because I could have gotten.
Why didn't I do this? You never know. You never know.
So you know, I went back to my in-laws, and then they took me to the airport, and I flew back home.
Oh, that's wonderful. We need to take a
Okay.
brief break.
All
Doctor. But then we want to talk about the campaign and what campaigning is like. We'll be back with Dr. Michael Rodrigues right after this.
A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
Jesus is the cornerstone. My Jesus is the
And welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. We're talking with Dr. Mike Rodrigues, and we're talking about his school principal days in Washington, D.C., and it's all going to segue in and make sense here in a minute as we talk about politics. When we took the break, we left you in Washington, and you were
Indeed.
doing your best to visit every building in Washington in one day. Tell me about that.
Well, as I mentioned, I missed out on that lunch at the White House. But so after flying back home, and in my heart, I had a very strong desire to take my family. I wanted my kids to have the experience of seeing Washington, D.C., and we were able to do that. And then a few years later, I was assigned as principal of Sioux Morrow Elementary School, and it was quite a fantastic appointment, because Sioux Morrow was a music teacher in the school district, and it was
Really?
my understanding that Sioux Morrow Elementary School was the only elementary school in our nation that had been named for a music teacher.
Really?
Right. And
What a
then-
great story.
And then being a musical person myself, it was quite an honor to be there.
Yeah.
As time went on, our gate teacher, Mrs. Cook,
The Gifted and Talented
the
program.
Gifted and
yeah.
Talented Education Program,
Right.
had led our kids to enter a competition for energy development with the National Energy Education Development Project out of Manassas, Virginia, of all places.
Okay.
Well, our kids won the competition and were then recognized
Really?
for the state of
the
Nevada.
state,
They were
okay.
recognized as the Nevada State School of the Year.
Wow.
And with that came a trip to Washington, D.C., where they were to be recognized with the schools of all of the other states across the United States. And so you've got 2,000 kids and teachers from all over the U.S. And this was like the icing on the cake, the idea of being able to share the Washington, D.C. experience with our students. Well, while we were there, we had the opportunity to meet with Senator Harry Reid, at that particular time, Senator Ensign. Over the course of several years, our school actually won this competition for several years running. And one year, I believe it was in 2008 or 2009, I don't recall the year, our school was designated as the National School of the Year for their project.
Wow, what an honor.
With this trip to Washington, D.C., we got to go into the White House. And so we got to visit the White House. We visited Mount Vernon, President George Washington's home, as well as all of the Smithsonian museums. And the highlight was the trip down the Potomac. During our visit there in Washington, D.C., one of the venues that I wanted the kids to be able to experience was the National Cathedral.
Oh, sure.
That was just a dream in my heart to go to the Washington National Cathedral. And so our schedule one day worked out that we were able to go there. And so we made sure that we got there a little early. And I don't know if I should say this on air or not, but I had to visit the men's room. And while I was,
You're allowed.
Okay. And so then I'm coming out of the men's room, and there were still a few minutes left on my watch. I could hear a teacher calling my name. They used to refer to me as Dr. R, because by then I had earned my doctorate. And they were saying, Dr. R, hurry up, Dr. R. And I said, well, wait a minute. It's
we got time.
We've got time here. And they said, no, they want you to read the scripture. And I said, what?
They don't know me.
Yeah, I said, this is not the place to joke around, okay?
Yeah.
And they said, no, we are not joking. The person who was supposed to read the scripture called in sick. So they asked for volunteers, and we volunteered you. This was really
what an honor.
It was quite an honor, and I felt really that the Lord was blessing me in a very special way. My desire was to go there and worship, and here He gave me the opportunity to read the Scripture, and it was quite phenomenal. The following year, we got to participate in the Lord's Supper, and actually helping with the Lord's Supper, and so that too was quite an honor. So this whole trip and desire to go to Washington, D.C. also is the experience of a teacher. We experience these various life-changing events, but they're really not meant to keep them to ourselves. We're to share those with others so that they too may benefit from that experience. While we were in Washington, D.C., as I looked at these boys and girls, my prayer for them was that perhaps one day, one or two or several of them might become leaders and serve our country, perhaps as a president, perhaps as a senator, or maybe a governor, and serve our country in a very positive and effective way. Then I began thinking about myself. We had the opportunity to meet with Congressman Joe Heck, with Congresswoman Dina Titus, and I began thinking, I wonder if this experience was also to open my eyes or my heart to the possibility here of perhaps serving in a capacity like this. And so after coming back home and taking time to think about that, I had the good fortune of having a young lady working at my school who is a teacher, and she still works at Sumaro, and her name is Melissa Woodbury. And we would often talk about various issues with regard to education. And she one day said, you know, why don't you run for office? You could run for office. And I thought, well, you know, I've actually considered that. So after some thinking and praying and talking with others, I decided to run for United States Congress.
That's wonderful. We'll talk about what that experience was like in just a minute. We'll be back with Dr. Mike Rodrigues right after this.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
We're honored to have Dr. Mike Rodrigues right here with us on Las Vegas Tonight, and we're about to talk politics, at least for a couple of minutes. So you convinced yourself, with help,
Indeed,
that you were going to run for the United States Congress. That's chewing off a pretty big bite, isn't it? Tell me about what the campaign was like.
Quite a learning experience. My goal for running, I wanted to run to make a positive difference.
Sure.
I really believe that our nation was taking a wrong direction. So I wanted to change that, or at least be a part of a positive change. My youngest son, Joseph, said, now, Dad, you know, the person who raises the most money generally is the person who wins.
Almost always, he's right.
Yes,
yeah.
Indeed. And so in talking with those in the know, they said, generally speaking, that is correct. Every now and then there is an upset, but you have to be able to raise the money. And I was educated or schooled with respect to, you're going to have to get on that phone and call people.
Sure.
You're going to have to become a professional beggar. You're going to have to just call and call and ask and ask and ask, and after you've done that, you're going to have to ask more. And that was uncomfortable.
Sure.
That was one aspect that I didn't enjoy. The other aspect that I didn't enjoy was when people said they couldn't give anything. Yeah. Because so many they just won't give up that money. Yeah. And it was a difficult time economically.
Yeah. What year was that you were running?
Well, we were running the campaign during the 2011 school year.
Okay. Into
the 2012 school year. The primary was held, of course, in June of 2012, and I lost the primary.
Right.
So that ended my bid for the United States Congress at that particular time.
Yeah.
There's a big question mark.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You going to do it again?
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
I wouldn't close the door to that possibility.
Right.
But at this particular point in time, I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel that the way we campaign is a good system now? And if not, what kinds of things would you change based on the experience you had in running in the primary? Is it too much about the money, for example?
Well, I know that there's talk about establishing a general fund where those who do not have the economic means might have access to funds that would make it possible for them to run a viable campaign.
Okay.
And,
Public financing, just like the presidential election.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a possibility. But, you know, as a Republican, I favor, capitalism.
Sure, sure. Individual initiative.
Absolutely. And so while there would be some changes that I would make in access to funds being readily available, at this particular time, I'd have to really consider what changes would be made.
Okay, sure. Now, being a pastor, having a background in ministry, America seems to be trending more and more toward a sort of a false, in my view, a separation of church and state. Mm-hmm. And there are those that say no religion of any kind should not inform our political system. What's your feeling on that?
I believe that that's an erroneous position. When one goes to Washington, D.C., mm-hmm. and when one looks at the historical record, it is quite obvious that the United States of America was founded as a Christian nation. Thomas Jefferson was involved in the publishing of an American Bible for use in the United States of America. We go back and look at the history and the historical documents, we know that our major universities, the majority of which, including Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and the like, were all established by Christians, and their first staff of professors were all Christians. They were founded with the idea, or upon the premise, of the importance of preparing people to serve God and to enable our citizenry to be a learned and biblically knowledgeable nation. So this idea that our nation is anti-religion or should not have the perspective of a religion is erroneous. It's false. And I believe that it's a deception of the devil that has crept in to our educational system, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. especially on the college campuses, and is now being filtered into our public school system.
And do you feel that it's reversible at this point? Do you think that this understanding of America as a Christian nation will again come to the fore, or do you see this as a lost cause?
I don't see it as a lost cause in the sense that we shouldn't do everything that is both humanly and supernaturally possible. The Lord Jesus Christ said we can do nothing apart from Him. He's the vine, we are the branches. We have to abide in Him, and only by abiding in Him can we effectuate change. But we also know that the Scripture teaches that the world will wax worse and worse, that we are moving and we are on course with the wrath of Almighty God. We know that this world, age, or system is coming to an end. We know that the Lord will return, mm-hmm. and He will establish His kingdom in righteousness. We who are here now have the responsibility to proclaim Him. He's the only King. He is the Lord, and He's the Lord of this nation. Whether or not politicians or educators want to affirm Him as such, that doesn't negate the truth that He is still the Lord. And He's Lord not only of this nation, but of the entire universe. He is King of kings and Lord of lords. So He is going to enter or usher in His kingdom. We bear the responsibility to do everything in our power and empowered by Him to work toward that end. Now, whether or not we will ever see the type of spiritual revival in our nation that has been seen in years past, I would pray and say, I hope so.
So do I. I join you in that. That was very powerful. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
We need to take another brief break. We're going to come back for one more segment. and we're going to talk about Mike's church is what we're going to talk about. We'll be back with more on Las Vegas Tonight right after this. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas Tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you. Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm sorry to say we're in our last segment. It's been fascinating talking to Dr. Mike Rodrigues about his many careers, his multifaceted life. Let's talk about your faith for a minute and about your church. You're a lifelong Christian? Did you come to Christ early?
I came to Christ when I was about 16 years old. My parents were from a Catholic background.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I knew Christ then as a young Catholic boy, and I loved singing in church. I loved the nuns; they always treated me well, and the priests. But as I got older, and I started reading the Bible for myself, as I read things, I began to see some things that weren't quite consistent with what I understood as a boy. And I was out playing one day in the front yard over at one of my friend's house. We were playing football out there, in the grass, and his mother called me over and asked if she could speak to me. And I said, well, sure. I was about 16, and she began talking to me about Christ. And what she was doing was she was sharing the gospel with me. And basically everything that she shared was consistent with what I had read and understood. So I accepted the Lord as my Savior and followed through in believer's baptism. And I wish I could say that I'd been faithful all that time and had been serving the Lord, but
very few are.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
And earlier I mentioned after having come here to Las Vegas in the 70s, surrendering, rededicating my life and surrendering to full-time Christian service. But I've had the opportunity now to serve as the pastor of Homesite Baptist Church.
Tell me about your church, and how long have you been with Homesite?
I've been with Homesite now for about 20 years, actually.
Oh, congratulations.
Indeed. The church was about to close its doors. It was located over off of Eastern and Mesquite.
Okay.
And through some discussion and some talk, we decided that we would sell that building. We sold that building. But prior to selling that building, the congregation had agreed that we had to all move together to make this thing work. We figured we were going to move over to the northwest side of town, and really believed that was the thing that we were led to do. And again, hindsight is a great teacher, because after we sold the building and then moved, more than half decided that they weren't.
They didn't want to drive that
They didn't
far.
want to drive over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so as things panned out, we lost a large segment of our population, of our congregation. We eventually moved into a storefront, and those things are quite expensive. We moved into a new storefront over in the northwest. We had to build it out, and that cost tens of thousands of dollars to do, and the rent was quite exorbitant. And then, of course, the economic...
That's when the bottom fell out.
Indeed.
Yeah.
People lost their jobs, and And many in our congregation at the time were either young families who were struggling to make it, or seniors, and
on fixed income.
Fixed incomes, and so many of them moved to Pahrump. So we basically dwindled down to a very small congregation.
Precious few. Yeah.
And we were part of the American Baptist Association at the time, and all during this period of time, they were going through some changes, and they also dissolved. So we were left basically in an independent state. Well, here in the last several months, we've applied for membership with the Nevada Baptist Convention of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Oh, great.
And I received a letter the other day that they're going to be recommending our membership into the convention.
Great.
So we're hoping, our goal is, of course, to honor the Lord by reaching the lost and to ministering to families. We want to build a community church that is evangelistic and missionary at its heart, a Bible preaching and teaching church, and we want to reach lost people for Christ. We want to be a part of building the kingdom for the Lord, not building our own kingdom, but building the kingdom for the Lord. And so that's Homeside Baptist Church.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we want to give everyone an opportunity to find out more. Please give us your contact information.
Our contact information basically is my cell phone.
Okay.
Right? So when you call, you're going to, and my number is 702-354-3712.
We'll put that information up on the screen.
Indeed.
Yeah. And boy, we hope you have tremendous success with the church. We're glad you're here. I think you're a true asset to our community and to the Christian faith here in Las Vegas. It's been an honor meeting you. I've really enjoyed this one.
Pleasure's been all mine.
You know,
sir.
He's a pretty great guy.
Thank you.
I'm looking at your fans out here. Please come back and let us know how things are going with Homesite and how things are going with your singing career, because we want to hear more about that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mike,
My
it was
pleasure.
a pleasure to meet you.
Thank
We've been with Dr. Mike Rodrigues and Homesite Church. His phone number is up right now. Please give him a call, and if you're in the northwest side of town or anywhere,
Indeed.
and you don't mind driving to the northwest side of town, they'd love to have you at their church. Thank you so much for watching. There's plenty more coming on this station. It's all good. God bless you, and please walk with Him.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with Dale Davidson. Send your tax-deductible gifts to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Or call 702-480-3989. Thanks for watching.